Okay, when you see the word asymptotes in this next problem, you automatically know we're dealing with a hyperbola, so there's no major surprises here. So let's get straight to completing the square, grouping the x's and the y's separately. We have 4x squared minus 8x, leave a blank, minus 9y squared plus 18y, leave a blank to complete the square, equals negative 31. Now let's factor out the leading coefficients. Factoring the 4 out leaves us x squared minus 2x inside the parentheses, and factoring a negative 9 out leaves us with y squared minus 2y in the next parentheses. Be careful that you change the sign in the middle there when you factor the negative out. Okay, now we begin the cut in half square process. So negative 2 is going to cut in half to a negative 1 and square to a 1. That's not really a 1 because there's a 4 up front that distributes to it. It's really a 4 we've added to the left, so we need to add 4 to the right to compensate or to balance this out. In the y grouping, the negative 2 also cuts in half to a negative 1 and squares to a 1, but that's not a 1, it's really a negative 9. Since we've subtracted 9 on the left, we need to subtract 9 on the right. And now let's complete the square. We have 4 times the quantity x minus 1 squared minus 9 times the quantity y minus 1 squared equals negative 36. We want this to equal 1 and not a negative 36. So we're going to have to divide each side by negative 36. In doing so, the first fraction becomes negative because 4 over negative 36 is negative, and the second fraction becomes positive. We want our positive leading coefficient, so we're going to rearrange this in standard form so that the y's are listed first. This is going to become y minus 1 quantity squared over positive 4 minus x minus 1 quantity squared over 9 is equal to 1. I think there's a moral to be learned here, or a lesson to be learned here. From the original problem, we saw x squared minus y squared, and we thought that this was going to be a hyperbola opening left and right. But it's only after doing all the square that we find out that y squared is listed first, and this is going to be a hyperbola that's opening upward and downward instead. So don't just look at the equation and instantly jump to a conclusion that might not be true. The center here is going to be located at 1, 1. Actually, be careful here because the first 1 came from the second parentheses where the x is. We didn't read it from left to right. We went to the x parentheses first. The vertices, well, because this is opening up and down, we're going to pay attention to the denominator of the y fraction, which is 2, and that's going to tell us to move up and down 2 from the center. And so that's going to give us vertices at 1, 3 and 1, negative 1. Okay, the next thing we need to do is start looking for the foci, beginning with c squared equals 4 plus 9. That's the sum of these different denominators. Notice that we have a minus between our fractions, and that's a reminder to us that we're going to add these denominators together. So c squared is going to be 13, and c will be plus or minus the square root of 13. From our little sketch, we know the foci will also be located above and below the center, and therefore the foci will be located at 1, 1 plus or minus the square root of 13. Finally, we need our asymptotes. Let me move off to the left here, that is. And the asymptotes begin with y minus k equals plus or minus the slope times x minus h. And the y minus k can be found just up here in our standard form as a y minus 1. And incidentally, we'll have x minus 1 also. So here we go. Y minus 1 equals plus or minus the slope times x minus 1. Okay, let's get the slope in just a second here after we have graphed this hyperbola. The center is at 1, 1 there in the first quadrant. The denominator on the y fraction is 4, which square roots to a 2, so we're going up and down 2. The denominator of x is 9, which square roots to 3, so we're going left and right 3. And those points help us to draw the box through which we're going to draw the asymptotes. So here we go. Draw in the diagonals, which are the asymptotes. And since this is opening up or down, we're going to make sure that we go through our vertices on and below the box there. And here we go. Now, notice our box, we went up 2 and over 3, which means the slopes of our asymptotes will be plus or minus 2/3. And I think that finishes everything off here.